From global trade to local enterprise stories, this is Business Now, supported by ABSA Bank Uganda, with the good news on custody banking. On this week's edition on our CEO segment, we speak to the chief of the research unit on globalization, competitiveness and labor standards, who was in Kampala for a seminar on trade, investment and decent work. Then to Western Uganda, where the Agriculture Minister Frank Tumwebaze launched the National Dairy Center in Mbarara, calling on farmers to embrace technology and research to boost milk productivity.
How do you combine international labor standards with quality products, with making sure that that untapped potential is there with respect to different sectors, agriculture, manufacturing? How do you make sure that that spills over not only in terms of the quality of your products, but the quality of your labor market?
People need to embrace technology, people need to embrace these tools because they have potential for doing so much good.
Let us have a look at some of the top business stories dominating headlines this week across the globe. The World Trade Organization is warning that rising trade tensions between the United States and China could shave off up to 7% of global GDP if the standoff deepens, a development that could rattle global supply chains and emerging markets in Uganda. Now let's come back home. Uganda's private sector continues to expand, with the Purchasing Managers Index hitting 54, the highest in East Africa. But as input and food costs rise, analysts warn that inflation could challenge the country's growth momentum. And then Uganda is gearing up to host the 4th Uganda-UAE Business Forum later this month, with bilateral trade hitting $2.8 billion. The high-level meeting is expected to unlock new investment pledges across energy, manufacturing and agriculture. This is Business Now, and let's now move on to the United Arab Emirates investments in Uganda so far. On the show, we also bring you the news that Uganda has been urged to strengthen labor standards and align its trade policies with international benchmarks to attract quality investment and promote decent work. Speaking in Kampala, Marva Coulibaly, the chief of the Labour Organization's research unit on competitiveness and labor standards, emphasized that improving working conditions is key as Uganda deepens its participation in global trade with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
My name is Marva Coulibaly, and I am Chief of Unit in the Research Department at the ILO in Geneva. The unit that I head up, we deal with trade and labor issues, really thinking about how trade and investment impact on the labor market and how you can create decent work. We are holding this seminar here today in Uganda, really to bring stakeholders together to talk about how they can develop policies, better policies, and have better engagement around trade, investment, and decent work. We have examples from other countries. We're sharing best practices. And I think that there are maybe key 3 things that I've seen so far that have come out of this seminar. First of all, it's just the level of engagement. I mean, people are extremely aware of the issues that are around them, but how do you bring those issues together in a space where, you can really not only have dialogue, but bring that dialogue forward in terms of implementation. So there's a lot of awareness, but how do you actually bring things together and so that you can move policy forward? The second thing that I thought was extremely important so far is about inclusivity. How do you bring in informal sector? How do you have discussions around women? How do you have discussions around young people? How do you make sure that policies actually go to the grassroots and impact the people who are most engaged in the labor market and are most in need of that support? And I would say finally it has to do with, because I'm coming from an organization that's responsible for standards, particularly international labor standards, how do you combine international labor standards with quality products, with making sure that that untapped potential is there with respect to different sectors, agriculture, manufacturing? How do you make sure that that spills over not only in terms of the quality of your products, but the quality of your labor market?
When you talk of decent work, trade and investment, we are the mandated authority or agency, ministry that is supposed to oversee these aspects. But when it comes to the work aspect, we have to work collaboratively with the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. And we can't talk about trade and investment without bringing the component of labor into this. So that's why the game has been in our trade negotiations, both at the regional level, continental level, and globally. How do we address issues related to decent work in this kind of labor agreements? But then, of course, it turns out to be that we also need to look at how do we position ourselves based on our national development agenda. Now we're talking about the 10-fold growth strategy, where industrialization, both when it comes to the goods and services, are going to be part of what constitutes that strategy in terms of implementation and success. But we're not having robots that are going to deliver on this. It's actually natural persons, human beings. So that means that the good social protection we offer them, the decent working environments that they need to have, the security they need to know that we are working and we are going to contribute positively to the employment space, that's what we really want to align in this dialogue. And now we are revising policies like the trade policy for Uganda, the MSME policy, and the national quality and standardization policy. So we want now to integrate some of these interventions to address that aspect, the workers, the employees, and then also what government role should actually be in this space.
In Western Uganda, Agriculture Minister Frank Tumwebaze has called on farmers to embrace research and technology to improve milk productivity and competitiveness. The minister was speaking at the launch of the National Dairy Center in Western Uganda, a new initiative aimed at supporting training, innovation, and value addition across Uganda's dairy industry.
So thank you for coming to witness the launching of the National Dairy Center of Excellence at Mbazadi. And really I'm very happy that Naro has listened to the challenge I've been trying to really put on them. People must continue to get the best of the best from this center. So thank you, Naro, for prioritizing this. There are better farmers out there who are also doing some good work of breeding. They are there. So those farmers, we need to profile them. We need to license them. And then they add on to this center. So if we're here and we're exhibiting the best of the best, it is both the government farm exhibiting what they have and also the partners. And we should also really even make a law to criminalize people who sell fake breeds. They say this breed is from this, it's AI, when actually the person ajiguzira mu kikomera. Okugura mu kikomera means you go and buy from the cattle market and you come and claim it is a high pedigree animal and you sell it a premium price. It shouldn't be attractive. That's criminal. So really, partly now this is your work, but it's also the work of the ministry and NABRIC. We must work together to ensure the breeding policy of the country is clear, and we should also have a clear law. We should license private sector breeders to complement what we are doing here, such that we improve the entire country's profile of the breeds. People have been asking about the antique that we launched here. I just want to give comfort to the farmers that Naro finished all the trials and they were successful. They are now doing the hardware of the factory to produce. I have personally visited them. So they are in the final stages of the hardware installations. We need to have more study tours in Kenya. Those people have mastered dairy farming. They pay attention to silage, they pay attention to balancing the feeds, they pay attention to managing the cow. They are there. And that's why their cows give more. My friend there, Kenneth, was telling me that in Kiambu, cows give up 40 liters a day. They are the usual, same cows. So yes, the breed matters, but also how you look after it matters most.
And in tech now, artificial intelligence is projected to inject a staggering $15.7 trillion in the global economy by 2030. That's according to analysis by the PwC. Uganda is stepping up with its own innovation. Sunflower, the country's pioneering multilingual AI model, launched at the 2025 AI conference developed by Sunbird AI. This open source powerhouse supports over 31 indigenous languages, including Luganda and Acholi, and challenges the dominance of English-centric systems. This breakthrough is vital for supercharging local economic development by bridging language divides and fostering inclusive tech adoption.
Sunflower has a more generative nature. So an example could be the difference between a translator and an interpreter. A translator translates directly, an interpreter explains things. So Sunflower explains these translations. It has 31 languages, most of them are text. The next steps are to move to speech. So we want people to be able to talk different languages and have Sunflower understand and respond. So that's the next step. We also want to move it to WhatsApp because we have a large population that uses WhatsApp. You can imagine people being able to consume different languages on WhatsApp. We also want to make sure that the APIs are there, that people can use it to build financial tools that can help them financially. So fintech, for example, that deals with a lot of people, agriculture, startups. So we want to make sure that the API is robust enough to take in all these. So if it's a competition with the ChatGPT and DeepSeek on English, for sure they'll beat us hands down. But if it's a competition on Lugungu, on Bari, on So, on Alur, I think Sunbird is going to come up winning. So this is exactly what we're trying to do at Sunbird. We know the big tech will not cover these languages because they're not economically viable. And that's where Sunbird is coming in, to make sure that we're including all these other people that will not be included. So data is very important, privacy is very important, understanding the bias in data is very important, misinformation, disinformation. So these are very important things which are coming up now. And the way we look at them as Sunbird is to make sure we build responsibly. So responsible building of AI tools. So for example, Sunflower, we try to build responsibly. The data we use, there's no private data. Even the data we collect on mundane topics like agriculture, we make sure we use that data as prompts and we generate data, quote-unquote artificial data that looks like the real data, to make sure the privacy is maintained. People need to embrace technology. People need to embrace these tools because they have potential for doing so much good. So the people who are hesitant, either in legislature or using them, I think should get on board. That would be a big lesson. The field is rapidly moving, so regulation needs to be flexible and less rigid now. So I think they are, and this is what we developers really want. So we want guidelines or guardrails, but we want them flexible to morph with the innovation. And so we've been, of course, talking with the Ministry of ICT, with all the organizations to make sure that these guardrails are there, but they are flexible. So this would be our biggest ask for regulation.
The government of Uganda is supporting and promoting development of local solutions by Ugandans, and therefore this one is one of those solutions that will go a long way in correcting, first of all, the misinformation, disinformation challenge that we are facing today, but also ensuring that as we communicate to Ugandans, we are all inclusive. We are not leaving anybody behind, because right now we can be able to translate to 31 different languages as we speak. For agriculture, if you have farmers and you're marketing products, we have the produce development model, and we're marketing and promoting this program, but also sensitizing the public on how to adopt the program. The best way to do it is to speak in the languages that they understand and appreciate. So this solution will help the various sectors, will help education, health, agriculture, tourism, because even these communities that we visit, people have the culture and traditional history of their settings in their own languages, but now that can be translated real time into English that a tourist would easily understand. So it is a product that is very relevant, a product that is going to help this country. AI is a technology that is evolving very fast, and of course there are fears globally on how AI is impacting on people's culture, impacting on the discipline, impacting on so many things, and even the standards that we are supposed to adhere to as we adopt AI.
Excellence and integrity took center stage as the ACCA Uganda Society celebrated professionals driving innovation in finance and corporate governance. The awards highlighted the critical role of accountants in promoting transparency, sustainability, and sound business practices across Uganda's corporate entities.
I applaud the nominators as well. The ones who take time to nominate colleagues, nominate line managers, because it's not about you, but you go all out and do this. Thank you very much. In respect of our theme this year, the CFO Vision, Creating Legacy and Impact, I'd like to say we've created impact as ACCA and Deloitte, and probably just thank by saying that through this initiative, we've added a layer onto amplifying the role and the profile and the strategic positioning of the CFO's role.
A CFO sits in a position of privilege. No other office in an organization sits at the pinnacle of convergence of information. Every decision that's made in that organization, whether it comes from HR, it comes from marketing, will find convergence in finance. So you are sitting on top of this information and on top of this data. And like the good book says, who much is given, much is required. So there is going to be need, there's going to be an accountability that God will require you to have more impact than an HR person, or more impact than a marketing person, because you are sitting on top of all this information and data. So these are the basics you have as a CFO. And I'll start with the basics. Let's just ask some questions. Where are you adding value in the organization? And how are you adding value in the organization? In signing payment vouchers? Anybody can do that. In sending out invoices? Anybody can do that. And if you're a CFO and you're focusing on payments or receivables, remember you're not being sales, somebody else is being sales. So you're just sending out the receivables. You're using 1/8 of your potential. How do you move from there and begin to ask questions? Even within organizations, how do you create impact? Generating revenue takes a special CFO for that matter. Will you be that CFO? Because you begin to create impact when your team members can actually see that you're creating for them and working with them, bring this value to them.
And that's it for this week's edition of Business Now, your trusted source for top business stories from Uganda and beyond the African markets. You can catch a repeat of the program this Friday afternoon and rewatch all our stories on NTV Uganda YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe for more business updates and insights. Malcolm Musime, follow me on X at Malcolm Musime is the tag for more business and financial highlights through this week. Business Now is proudly supported by ABSA Bank, now running its campaign on custody banking, a service that helps you investors safely hold and manage your financial assets such as shares and bonds while providing regular reporting and corporate action support. ABSA Bank Uganda, bringing you custody solutions that secure your investments and build confidence in the market. Next up, NTV Tonight.